Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This week I'm going to be talking about the female anatomy. I'm going to be doing a lesson. Basically, I want to talk about things that we just were not taught in biology. There are so many things that I still don't know about my body and things that I've only just learned from Googling or just seeing on social media, and I'm just like, oh my god, there are so many things that we were not taught in biology. So I want to go through a few of those today. Obviously, disclaimer, I am in no way a professional, I am not a biologist, I am not a physiologist, I have no one, but these are just some things that I've learned along the way. I did happen to do quite well in biology in school, but again, we weren't taught so many things, so I didn't do well in the things that I should have been taught, so this is just kind of bleh. And obviously, this isn't just women, this is like trans men as well who have this anatomy that I'm going to be speaking about. So just want to put that in there because we are not trans exclusive over here. Woo woo! Who needs a medal? Me for being so inclusive. Woo! Joke. So I want to talk about maybe kind of debunking some myths or just some things that maybe were taught like weirdly or not really taught accurately, and then just talk about some things that weren't talked about at all. Things that I literally didn't know until leaving school. So let's get right into it. Before I get into some of these, like, I just want to say that, like, I think, like, I don't even blame it on, like, teachers necessarily, because, like, teachers are just teaching the curriculum, you know, like, they're just teaching what's in the books or what's being told to them. So I don't really blame them. So I more blame people who set the curriculum and, you know, people who actually are making the, like, educational system and the books and stuff. But also, like, they probably just didn't know this themselves, you know, like, I only know this stuff because I'm interested in it, but if you weren't interested in it or if you didn't have the body parts that I have, you might not care. So I don't really blame them, but these are just, you know, it's kind of just an unfortunate repercussion of biology teachers or whoever not knowing stuff. So number one is this notion that you have to use like feminine hygiene products, that like to wash down there that you have to use like flowery, soapy, smelly things. And like, oh my god, I hope we all know that's just like so not true. Like, they're actually quite bad. Like, your vagina literally regulates itself. It has a pH balance, it has a mechanism of staying clean and staying fresh. And like, you don't need to interfere down there. Literally all you need to do is just wash it with water and it does its own thing. We just need to let it alone and not upset it. And like, it's just so crazy that there's like this whole feminine hygiene industry, and it's just like, we don't need any of this stuff. So I think that's just kind of something that wasn't really talked about that much. And another one, you know how everyone's told that you are meant to bleed during your first time having sex? Like, wasn't that just like a kind of a rumor that was just like spread all around the place? And it's just actually not true. Like, sure, it happens for some women, yeah, and some people having sex for the first time, but not everyone, and it's not a guarantee thing. I think, like, I definitely grew up thinking, oh my god, like, I'm gonna bleed everywhere my first time having sex. Like, it just doesn't have to happen. It's just this kind of weird thing, and I feel like that could have been maybe said more in biology class. I don't know. Also, one of my big things, and if you watch my videos, you will know that I'm actually quite passionate about this, is the word vulva. I never once heard the word vulva mentioned in biology class. I didn't even know what a vulva was until kind of recently, actually. It was never ever mentioned. Like, you hear of the vagina, and that's what we say when we mean actually vulva. I never heard the word vulva once mentioned in biology class, and I think it's kind of crazy. Like, and again, I don't even know, do biology teachers know what a vulva is? Do humans know? I don't know, it's crazy. I remember distinctly being around like 4 years old and being in like a creche or whatever with like a lot of other kids, and I remember talking about my testicles, being like, my testicles, and like, my testicles. Like, obviously I don't have testicles, like, but now that I think about it as an adult, it kind of makes me sad, because I'm like, oh, was I just like so conditioned to like think about like male genitalia that I like thought myself that I had testicles? I don't know, it's kind of just this weird one. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. I'm sure I was taught in biology that I didn't have testicles, but you know, I thought that it would be fun to just put that little anecdote in there as well. Now, moving on to things that just were not talked about in biology class. The concept of virginity. Like, I am so passionate about this. I just think it's such bullshit. Virginity is just this concept. It's not even like a scientific thing. It's just this way of keeping people on a leash. It's like, okay, until you've had penetrative sex, penis, vagina, you are a virgin. You haven't had sex. And it's just so problematic. One, because it just teaches us that like other types of sex, like oral sex or anal sex, aren't sex, which they are, it's literally in the name, or that they're like lesser forms of sex. So like you hear of girls saying like, oh, you know, I didn't want to have sex with the guy, so like I just gave him a blowjob instead. And it's like, what? No, that's like, that is a big deal too. Like, I mean, like obviously you do whatever you want, but like don't just think of it as like, oh, I'll just give him a blowjob, I don't want to have sex with him. And it's like, what? And also it's very heteronormative because it's just like penis, vagina relationships. So it's implying that like anyone who's in like a gay relationship then is a virgin for life because they haven't had that kind of sex. It's just so bizarre, and it just puts this, particularly for girls, it puts this kind of this moral pressure on us, like, oh my god, if you're a virgin, you're pure and you're everything, and it's just like, oh. So I wish that had kind of been talked about more in biology, or even just in like sex ed in general. And actually a lot of the ones I'm about to say now, I wouldn't have minded so much if it was, say if it wasn't taught in biology, if it had been taught in sex ed, but like a lot of the stuff just wasn't talked about at all, like anywhere in school. So that's why I just want to draw attention to it today. The next one I want to talk about is giving birth. I think we were told like about reproduction, we were told like how a woman gets pregnant, but we were never told like about your hormones during it, or like the kind of real life things, like what happens afterwards, like how like some women like literally shit themselves while they're giving birth. Like we weren't taught these things, and like I just think it's good to talk about these things and make it normal, and like this is a part of our biology and it should be taught. And it's just kind of weird that like they teach us all about how we get pregnant and then just like don't talk about like anything else related to being pregnant. It's just kind of weird. We're definitely not taught about masturbation. Like I don't remember that ever being mentioned, like for guys and girls alike, like anyone. I don't ever remember being talked about. Obviously it's a huge part of life for everybody, especially, you know, guy teenagers growing up. They all seem to be at it. Girls maybe come a bit later because of the shame and stigma attached, but you know, it's just not something talked about, and I think it should be. It's our biology, no? What are your thoughts? Then this one really grinds my gears. How we're taught about like the male orgasm, or like the male ejaculation, because it's needed for reproduction, but the female orgasm is never mentioned because it's not needed for reproduction, therefore we're not taught about it. And I'm just like, oh my god. And like then we wonder why so many guys think that like their orgasm is like the main event, and like don't even bother to ask if their partner has finished. It's just like, what? Like we actually wonder these things, and it's like we're literally not taught in school that women can even orgasm. Like if you didn't know any better, you might think that, oh, women just must not do that. Like we're definitely not taught about anal sex. Like that's just not even a go-to, again because it's not needed for reproduction. We're not taught about the clitoris. Like, oh my god, like it's literally a part of the female anatomy, and it's just not ever mentioned. Like I literally didn't know really that I had one or what it was until like, this is embarrassing, but until maybe like 20, 21, like I had heard of this thing, but it seemed more like this kind of mysterious concept that was talked about on like American TV or something, and I honestly didn't know that it was like a part of my existence until so late. And isn't that insane? And like even just as well, like, and this goes back to the whole biology and sex ed thing, like just pleasure in general just isn't talked about in school at all. You know, we're taught about like how to avoid getting pregnant or how to avoid STIs, and we're not taught about just pleasure or having sex for the sake of just having sex. Then on the topic of periods, I mean, I guess, yeah, we're taught about what happens, but like again, we're not taught about like emotions, or you know, like PMS, or like what happens, what like actually happens, like what's the reality of getting your period or having your cycle every month. Like we're just not taught those things. I'd love to go back in time. Obviously like biology was so long ago for me, so I can't even remember, but like I'd love to go back in time and see what was taught. Like were we even told about cramps? Like were we even told that it was meant to be painful, or you know, like I just would love to know. None of these things seem to be jumping out at me. And then again, just things like discharge, like I can't remember if that was mentioned. Like I have friends that still don't know why, like what discharge is, or like why it's there, or what it's doing. Like it has a job. Like it's kind of insane. And like I just kind of personally want to make this video because there are just so many things that I didn't know, and I'm still learning, and I'm still just like Googling, and like I might see a word and I'm like, oh, what's that? And it's just insane. And like I just would love to know what was said in biology class and what wasn't, and I just think like none of these things were talked about. Like I didn't know any of these things until like only recently, and I just think it's insane, and it has such knock-on consequences for our lives, particularly as women, and how we view our bodies and how we view our sexuality. And so I just think it would be super amazing if these kind of things were talked about more as if they were normal, because they absolutely are. So I'm gonna leave it there today. I hope you find this video informative. Let me know what you think. I would love if you like my page or like the video. It really helps get more people to see my videos and get the word out there, and everyone will be like, woo, feminism. So yeah, I would love if you could do that, and have a lovely week, everyone. Bye.